Hey guys, welcome to the FBE Podcast. A quick announcement before we get started. This is actually going to be the last week that this show is here on the FBE channel. Starting next week, this podcast is going to be moving over to FBE 2. So make sure you're subscribed.
We've been doing a ton of vlogs over there. We have a Tuesday and a Friday vlog. They are super cool, and we're excited to get all the 5%ers over there. So we'll see you on the FBE 2 channel.
Look at how excited Benny is, everybody. Benny is so excited about the move to FBE 2.
I'm very excited. I love FBE 2. Probably my favorite channel on YouTube.
Wow.
Go check out FBE 2, behind the scenes vlogs, and now the podcast every week. Here we are again, ladies and gentlemen. This week, episode 25 of the FBE Podcast. I couldn't be more excited to be joined this week by our special guests and Benny.
Special guests and Benny.
I know.
Yeah. I'll take
You're
it.
special too.
And Benny. I can live with that.
Well, and there was a comma there that you couldn't hear, but it was, I'm excited about the special guest, comma, pause, and Benny. So I'm just trying to disassociate.
I don't think that anyone really needed all of that, but that's fine.
Speaking of our guests, would you like to say hello? Guest number one?
Hello, I'm guest number one.
What do you also go by?
Tom. Boston Tom.
Tom is back.
I'm back, round 2.
And our other special guest this week?
Yes, I'm Kennedy from Adults React.
Kennedy from Adults React. So we are super excited and thrilled to be joined this week by Kennedy and Tom. Shout out to Oscar and Steven, who was here a second ago helping us run the camera. This is the podcast where we hang out for more than 10 to 15 minutes with the group of people we've affectionately deemed the 5%, which is the very small part of our audience that wants to sit around and hang out and listen to a behind the scenes technical production podcast about all of the content we make here at FBE. We find it super interesting, but that's just because we work here. We're thrilled that other people find this at all interesting. But yeah, so we're going to be answering a bunch of questions that you guys have sent in this week, talking about a bunch of questions you also have about kind of YouTube and the industry in general. And it should be a good time.
It's always a good time here on the FBE Podcast.
Okay.
It's always a good time.
What it is it not?
A bunch of good times.
I think it's a fantastic
This is the first time I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
The first time in
your
since
life?
you've ever been working here at FBE that you're like, I'm actually finally enjoying myself.
It's all been leading to this moment.
Right.
You don't have a stupid laptop in front of me. There's not a food dish that's going to be something terrible. I just have to sit here and be myself. Mm-hmm. Well, we're thrilled to have you,
Yeah,
Kennedy.
thank you.
We're going to start off just with some quick company news and announcements. For those of you maybe just listening to the audio version that didn't hear our cold open on YouTube, this podcast is moving over to the FBE 2 channel starting next week on YouTube.
Yeah, and FBE 2 had launched. It's still kind of in soft launch now, these months later, but the whole concept of that channel is kind of the community hub and where you can go to interact more directly. So it makes sense at this point, now that the vlogs have been releasing there twice a week and that's going to ramp up, that we want to move that 5% over to FBE 2, so all of the kind of community stuff are all on the same channel. So if you haven't subscribed, though, I have a feeling there's a huge amount of crossover between the people that are watching the FBE 2 videos and this podcast, but make sure you subscribe over to youtube.com/FBE2 to get the podcast on its new date and time.
Oh man, Wednesday, 3 o'clock?
No. Thursday, 3 o'clock.
Thursday, 3 o'clock.
Thursday, 3 o'clock Pacific. 3 o'clock Pacific. And I know everyone's going to say, what is that in my time zone? I don't know, depending where you live. I know on the East Coast it's 6 p.m.
I know that too.
And I also know that Mountain Time Zone is a real time zone, something I didn't know until I was probably 17 or 18 years old.
Really?
I was like, there's another time zone in the U.S. that isn't Central, Eastern, and Pacific? Mountain? And then for years...
You just wrote off a quarter of the country?
I didn't know. And then when I found out, I became very obsessed with what was in Mountain Time. And then for years, if you go back, especially to Twitter and to Facebook years ago, you'll see that what I used to do when it was just me running the social account, I would do Happy New Year on New Year's for like all of the East Coast and the Central. But I would always say, and let's not forget the forgotten time zone, Mountain. And so people would be so excited. Like, you didn't forget us. I'm like, never again.
sets all his watches to Mountain Time.
I'm like waiting for Mountain Time New Year's every year. Like that's where I get the most excited. Is an hour before it is actually the New Year here because I know
So
that it's New Year's
funny.
in Mountain Time.
So if you happen to not be subscribed, or maybe you're just listening on iTunes or Google Play or SoundCloud, make sure you head on over to youtube.com/FBE2 because that's where the podcast is going to be from now on.
Perfect segue. Speaking of iTunes and Google Play. Very soon, you'll be able to buy FBE's first movie on both of those platforms. So that worked very, very well. I'm glad about that. So this week, by the time you're listening to this, the F the Prom premiere would have happened a couple of days ago. So, wow, how great was that, huh, guys?
Oh man, it was so amazing to see everybody and the red carpet and the theater and see everybody's reaction.
What
It
a
was
wonderful
amazing.
time at the F the Prom premiere. That happened 2 days ago.
Gee whiz.
But on December 5th, it will be out on iTunes, Google Play, all kinds of digital outlets, and on demand. Very excited about that. It stars a bunch of fun people, including Tom, who has a small but mighty role in F the Prom.
Oh, yes.
You're how would you describe your role in the movie?
I'm a dick. That's it.
So it was a real stretch for you.
Yeah,
huh, Todd?
exactly. It was but also, me and Ethan James play bullies, and then I was like, Benny, like, why are we bullies? And he was like, well, I saw you guys, and you got to work with what you got. I was like, what?
Did I really say that? I saw you guys. So you gotta work with
You said that on the set. Me and Ethan James were just like,
Did I? I have no memory of saying that at all.
we looked at each other. We were just like, okay. He's
I
like,
feel like there was a misunderstanding here that you didn't I didn't understand what you were asking, or I didn't reply properly.
Something. I was
Because it doesn't
like-
sound like me at all.
no, it doesn't. I think it was like, well, I think this is all the characters and everything was filled, and it was just like, I'm trying to incorporate you guys in any way, and this is all I got was bullies. I think it was what it
I
meant.
know what you mean. So what I meant to say
Yeah.
is that we had the roles as they were set out, and then I had additional roles and fully became like, oh man, I want to get people in the movie.
Exactly.
And then of what I had left became like, oh well, this will be perfect because I have
For-
two bullies, and I think Tom and Ethan James are going to be great at doing that, and it's kind of funny to see them completely out of character for themselves. But the thing
Exactly.
is, immediately, and granted, I remember telling both of you, like, just be mean. Like, more like when you think it's like, oh, this is rough, go rougher. And right away, you guys were so mean. And was that the first day you ever met Brendan, who plays that
Yeah,
character?
exactly.
You were so mean to them.
I felt bad.
And they started before the cameras were even rolling. They just lit into him as soon as he showed
confused
up.
the
on
bully.
set.
Yeah.
Character development.
Exactly. I've seen him because he's friends with Jill. Yeah, and we've hung out. And every time I see him, I'm like, oh, I am so sorry. I am just so sorry, man.
Good time. So information probably will be in the description, but December 5th, and a lot more stuff's going to be coming out on across the channel soon. We had a lot of the cast in doing cool stuff, so stay tuned.
The trailer is out. If you guys still haven't seen the trailer
Yeah,
yet,
it's
check
sweet.
out the trailer. It's
And that's
really
been a cool thing, that the trailer has gone not like super viral, but has gone fairly viral with no plugging and promotions from FBE yet, which is really, really cool. Like that was even kind of the idea of like, this is a movie not in the same vein as like, oh, a YouTuber made a movie, even though those are completely great and all fine. But it wasn't like, we have a bunch of YouTubers and we're making this movie. It's like, no, we're making a movie to make a movie, and then we'll promote it, but like in the second wave, and let it just do its traditional movie advertising. And it kind of just worked. It's got such a great cast that it just kind of did what it did. So I'm excited about it.
So welcome to the F the Prom podcast.
Even years from now, when it's long in the past, I will always do an hour on F the Prom.
We could do a quick tease because I was going to talk about My Music there. We can tease a potential My Music special episode coming up of the podcast.
Oh, it took me a second. I was like, what do you not know about me being able to make more of my music, the thing I want most in life and will probably ever be
Well,
able to do?
it's not going to be a new series, but we are trying to do a My Music episode of the podcast coming up in December with some special guests. So if you liked My Music or you're a fan of that, stay tuned for that episode.
I'm so excited about that. I actually saw Lainey at a restaurant, I think last year, and I was like so nervous to go up to her and say hi. And I was like, hi, I love you on My Music. Also, I'm, on React.
And now Lainey's also on Adult React when she's in town. So that works out. And Tom, you were this close of being in My Music, and then you weren't available to play the role that Vince, who's a producer of this company, ended up playing. That fans will still go up to Vince, who are the big My Music fans, say, hey, Murray, how's it going? But you would have been Murray's spot.
Murray's
Damn it,
pub.
Tom.
And his pub.
Yeah,
I know.
Murray's pub. First name Murray, last name Spub. I don't get why it's so confusing. Maybe the best line in the entire show.
It was great, and I remember he did a great job. I think it was meant to be. It really was.
it still brings a smile to my face and a joy to my heart thinking of Vince and that character.
Dude, he's so happy. He's like, dude.
So Benny, are we jumping into your interrogation?
Oh, we can. I thought there was a third thing here, but I guess not.
I did. Well, I was trying to figure out what were we incentivizing like new time listeners or first time listeners to leave, because I did see a couple of first place emojis in the comments. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think we were saying that you should identify yourself if it's the first time you were listening to the podcast, so we actually know that you're new and that you're here now and part of the 5%. I think the thought.
And then I called out that there's a gold medal emoji for being in first place, and I was like, I don't know, there's like a first place emoji. So
when you've seen some of these, are they the recognizable names? And you're like, why are you doing this when we know that you listen? Or was it seem legit?
No, it seemed legit. And so I would encourage, because there's also been a couple people in there that are like, oh man, like I'm starting to hear the same names and shout outs and recognize the same people leaving comments on the podcast, which is incredible. I encourage you guys, if you see any first place emojis or new people in the comments, please welcome them, because we're so excited that our small little kind of community is growing and we're very welcoming. So if it is your first time listening, leave a comment here on SoundCloud or YouTube. Let us know it's your first time. Use that first place emoji and we will do our best to welcome you because we're excited that you're here. Questions for...
Sure. So Kennedy, let's start with the obvious.
Yeah.
What happened?
I changed my hair. No, I'm just kidding.
People listening to the audio have no idea, Benny.
Oh yeah.
Okay. True. Kennedy, if you were watching to the video, would have seen her crutch her way into the beginning. Though I will say, the most styling person I've ever seen in my life on crutches is Kennedy. But what happened?
So I had reconstructive surgery on my foot 2 weeks ago. And I mean, I used to play tennis. I used to compete. And that kind of took a toll on my foot, you know, a lot of injuries over the years. The most recent being I broke my ankle last year, and it never completely healed, I guess. And then also just like stuff I was born with, like this foot just wasn't a good foot. There was just a lot wrong with it. Yeah. So I had surgery and I'd been putting it off for a while. I was supposed to have the surgery last year and I just became busy. So
I was like, and you're in recovery now.
Yes.
You feeling okay?
I am. Today has actually been like today's the 2 week mark. So today's like, I feel the best I felt.
I will
so
say,
far.
beyond being so stylish with your amazing crutches, you're a trooper because you've been in here to film like right after the surgery.
2 days after.
Which I didn't know until I saw you at the meet and greet.
Yeah.
Where I was like, wait, but like that I put it two and two together. But you were here like a week ago, and you went to the meet and greet on the crutches, and you're
which
here
I paid
on the crutches.
for like for 3 days after, but it was so worth it.
Oh my gosh.
I just realized this is something that even worse since we're close enough to what was that experience for the two of you at the meet and greet?
Because this was the first time we had done something like this, like outside of VidCon, which is a very kind of closed
So from your perspective,
experience.
like being like the on-camera people on the channels, like what was it like meeting people? Were people coming up to you, totally knowing who you were and things like that?
You want to go?
Oh, okay. I thought it was such a cool experience because, as you mentioned, it was so different from meeting people at VidCon. It was a lot more laid back and casual, which I really liked. And it's funny because there were a lot of people who would come up to me and they'd be like, you look familiar, but I'm not sure if you're a fan or a reactor. But I actually really, admired that because they all got to see us just in a really chill element as if we were just hanging out with friends.
Part of me really, this could be a terrible, terrible idea. I was like, oh man, like I wish we had like buttons or t-shirts that was like staff reactors.
It actually is a good idea. I actually think that is something I was thinking about too. I think it just helps because the approachability, I think, for fans to talk to other fans but know how to start that conversation versus there are so many reactors. It's hard to
because there was such a high concentration. Like that was the highest of every meet and greet I've ever heard of or seen. It's usually like 500 people, like one person. This was like 50-50. Like you were surrounded by.
There was such a phenomenal turnout of reactors. Like it was on par, if not a little more, than the party we always throw every year.
Yeah.
Like there was more elders. I've never seen that many elders in one place at the same time. Like they all came out.
I honestly was
cool.
starstruck by the elders.
Oh man,
they had that effect.
Yeah, they just all seem so wise. I want to just like talk to them all and pick their brains.
You realize if things all go according to plans and well, one day people will be saying that about you as an elder on Elders React.
Wow.
I know. I tweeted that. I was like, oh man, because right after like the meet and greet, I had such like a, I don't know, it was almost like it was such a humbling experience for me. It was just like, it was weird. It was weird. I'm just gonna say it was just weird from the sense of like, I think Rafi put it like best, where it's just like there's a bunch of normal people out there. And they want to come hang out with us and just have a good time.
To hang out with other normal people.
Other
Because even the
normal
idea of you
people,
saying that it
yeah.
was a more chill environment, we are all just normal people. That's the
Yeah.
it's not even just the aesthetic of the show, it's the truth of the show. And they watch and like you for being literally you and not like the you as a vlogger you or the
Yeah.
you that you show people. You really are showing you, and they're like, "This is great. I'm me, and you're you, and I want to come and say hi." Like it is different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time. We've got to do it again. And
Yes.
Get to
I know.
any. We
Every
haven't
week.
gotten to a
Okay,
single
okay,
question
sorry.
from the. Yeah.
Okay, so Kennedy, I always ask this for people because you're an OG.
Yeah.
You're an OG team. You go back to the very
The
first
first
episode.
episode,
Yeah,
yeah.
the very
Yeah.
first episode.
Twilight.
Oh, stop.
I remember like waiting for that too because we had been it'd been requested a lot on Kids React. We were like, this doesn't feel like, not that it was inappropriate to show to kids. We were like, but the kids aren't going to be watching this yet.
Right.
It doesn't really make sense. That and the Hunger Games were these things that kept being brought up all the time. And then I think those were the first two
Those
episodes.
were the-
Or tells you, no, Hunger Games was the next round because when we did the first set of the teens episodes is where everyone said Hunger Games, and then the next time it became Hunger Games. But you were on the show for this period of time. You were then off the show for a period of time, and then walked back into this.
Yeah.
So I always like asking on the podcast for people that have had that experience, because there are a handful of you. What was that like for you, from what it was like to then walking in without seeing the evolution firsthand of just
Right.
stepping right into what it had grown into?
It was weird because we'd started out in an apartment.
Yeah.
And then, FBE had this huge glow up. So,
The glow up, though.
yeah, so I came back and I was like, whoa. But I mean, it's honestly, I feel like it's more, you guys are in a bigger building, obviously, and you have more equipment, I guess, and, more staff. But in essence, coming back to film kind of felt the same as it did before. I still felt like, FBE is this family. It's just a bigger family now, but it honestly felt like I'd never left.
I mean, it felt the same way in terms of I think Rafi found you that first day and I found
Yeah.
you another day.
Yeah.
But it is those moments when people come back that for us it becomes like, oh my God, it is like family reunion time when these things happen. And obviously I like hearing that because I was going to ask, is it still the same? Is it different?
Yeah.
And it's like, not the whole point of what we hope to build is that no, it would be the same vibe, but it's still quite a difference of just talking to me every time you come in.
Definitely. I mean, but it's still, all I know is also when I, first came back, I felt so happy for you guys. I was like, oh my gosh, look at where they are now. Like, this is amazing.
Question for both of you. So going back to those times where for episode after episode after episode, it was primarily just me talking to you all the time. I want the critique. How am I as an interviewer? Because you had to deal with it for years, both of you.
Yeah.
I'm not I think you were great. I think you passed down all of the right traits. I think they might have got into like deeper questions. I feel like with has the question gotten longer? I feel like
I
there's
think
been
so.
the question time. I feel like has gotten either longer or there's been like
The question time's actually gotten
Shorter?
way shorter. We
Oh,
used to
okay.
ask you between 8 and 14 questions. We now ask
Really?
you about 5.
oh gosh, maybe
Maybe we just talk too much.
yeah I know. But I think you were great.
Yeah.
I don't have any major
not just-
critiques.
he's
But I'm not fishing for the compliments.
I know, but
I'm
what
trying
about
to
the
think
ideas
of
of like when you come in, because especially when it's always the same person, is there things that you were like always anticipating, knowing I was going to ask you like, oh, he's doing it again or anything like that? Because I always liked the kids will be honest with me and they'll say things and joke around. And here and there, it's made it into episodes where like a kid will say something like, and now you're going to play the question time graphic because you just know the format. Or they're like, oh, you're going to ask me why again and stuff like that.
no.
I don't know. I don't know if it's you per se or if it's just like the way that we film now, but I feel like kind of what you just touched upon, I do see that where I feel like now, it's not as predictable when I go in a film. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen next. Am I watching something else? Am I eating something?
Well, that's a whole different vibe because we
Yeah.
don't, because that's the thing that people.
I mean, we didn't know obviously
Correct.
before either.
You never know anything
Yeah.
as to what you're going to be reacting to, but it's to the point where when we reach out to people, we don't even say, sometimes we do, but for the most part, the emails that go out from the coordinating team will say things like, are you available to film this day? And they won't actually say for what, which show,
Yeah.
or anything.
Yeah, no, we don't know.
I thought of something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, lay it on
yeah.
the
No.
top.
Okay. All right. So, it's not anything bad. I'm not saying, but But I know when I start to ramble, they know a way to cut me off like good. So it's not like, okay, like we have this amount of time to film and Tom's talking, he's on a tangent. Like the video is about puppies and you're talking about like space exploration and there is no correlation. So they're like, oh, okay. They have like a way of wording it, so it's like, okay. Where I feel like we would just go and talk for an hour
That's
and then
true.
be like, oh, later, Benny.
Yeah, I will say that, and that wasn't good in the sense of like the days would go much, much longer when we were in the rooms. And then I did get to a point where I was a little bit more on it. I remember saying things all the time of like, oh, we gotta stop talking. We gotta stop
Exactly.
talking. Yeah, that's true. They have to stick. They gotta stick to the schedule.
Yeah.
They got it. I think they have that down to a T.
Benny, I have a lot of hard-hitting questions coming up.
Oh,
but,
jeez.
do you have...
Well,
another?
I'm gonna go one more for
Okay.
Kennedy. One more for Kennedy. Tom, you've been on the show. So,
I know.
Okay.
No one wants
So I want to say that knowing you when you were younger, you were 16?
15.
Okay, so going even back then, and I definitely say it applies to now, but I would say that my memories of conversations with you was always like, you're someone I always felt right away, oh, you can go deep with this kid. Like you could really talk about things and you were always willing to do it and like, not even just willing to do it. It was more of like, that was just part of your personality. It felt like to me, knowing you in the bits and pieces of time I had of like, oh, here's someone that's thinking about the world. And I think it has just turned even on steroids as you've now grown up when it comes into some of the episodes you've done since you've come back.
Yeah.
Would you say that's an accurate thing that like the talking about things has always been something that has mattered to you?
That is very accurate. I grew up an only child, and so, you know, obviously I went to school with kids, but most of the time I would be home just having conversations about adult things with my parents, and I think that kind of shaped that. I don't know, people always tell me that I'm an old soul and they feel like I'm like a 50. I should be on Elders React probably. But yeah, no, I think that is accurate. I love, you know, really delving into whether it's the topic that's deep or just like finding a deeper way to think about something so minimal and like surface. That's
why it's always worked for you on this show, because that's like what we try to do even in the more fun episodes. Like, well, what's the extra thing that we could talk about that is interesting about the world based on this music video? It always worked. Yeah. So from the beginning. All right, John, we have questions for these guys.
Hard hitting, very controversial.
Oh, geez.
I mean, I'm just just prepare yourselves for these.
I'm ready.
Amara Queen 17 over on Twitter. Favorite emoji.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's so. We're really in the hot seat.
Do that to us. Come on, John.
Wow.
Oh, see?
You can give your top few if you
I know.
can.
I really like the rocket ship. I don't use it enough though. Like I don't have as many instances where I
I'll
need
show
to
my
use
age,
it.
and like I don't truly know everything that is an emoji, and I only use like very basic emojis. So
only the smiley faces.
I use a lot of the smiley faces. I use purple heart a lot.
Okay.
Because I like purple, so I use the purple heart emoji a lot. But these are like you say rocket ship. I didn't know there was a rocket ship emoji. Sometimes people send things to me. I'm like, whoa, there's an emoji for everything.
I really like the rocket ship, and now I like all of the talking emojis. I think my favorite talking emoji is the monkey. Or the chicken. Oh man, have you ever seen?
Oh
yeah,
the emojis.
No, those are fine.
The emojis. Okay.
Yeah, but I just.
I mean, you're going outside.
Okay, I'm
you're
sorry.
going outside the box. A
I
little
know
bit.
exactly. Cut me off.
Rocket ship.
Okay. My top few, because I can't narrow it down.
Yeah, Kenny's having a real struggle here.
I love the monkey emoji that's covering his eyes, like the see no evil.
Yeah.
I just think it's cute. It's cheeky. And then I use there's like a gold sparkle emoji that I use all the time. I think mainly because one of my catchphrases on social media has become "stay gold." So I use that a lot. And then there's like this smirking emoji.
Oh, that
where
one's
he's
one
like,
of my favorites too.
Yeah, he's up to
sly.
something. Yeah.
You know how interesting this is? I see this happening, and I'm like, I can see the 30 years from now episode of React about the rise of emojis back at this time period.
Oh man.
And people being like, and being able to talk to like the older generation, be like,
The
oh right, this
original
one, like we
emojis.
did for like AOL Instant Messenger, and people are like, oh, I remember that sound. You're like, oh right, the smirking emoji.
Because there's already been evolutions of emoji, and even there's new emojis now that are just in the latest like iOS, like the vampires and There's something, not
Mermaids.
even the animojis. Like there's new static emojis that have been released.
All these
so there's
emojis are gonna be in the
different
thumbnail of
sets.
this podcast.
I'm gonna say the 5 because I use the hand 5 to represent the 5%. Like when I'm
Aw,
replying to
that's
people
sweet.
in the comments. So I'm gonna say the hand emoji.
Adorable.
Okay, next question.
We're not even having honorable mentions for our emojis? No, I'm kidding.
Emoji podcast, we can start.
You had your moment. You went straight to animojis. Tom.
Yeah.
You can educate. We'll do the emoji podcast on FBE2, and you'll talk to me and
We have
show
to
me
have-
all the new emojis.
We
Teach Benny
100%
emojis.
have to have Jack's Films on the emoji podcast. Okay. This is coming from It's Mr. KT over on Twitter. Best game you guys have played because of React and the worst.
I played one game. I don't even remember what it was called. All I remember is that it was so hard.
Do you remember like what was the gameplay?
I think it was set in some medieval time kind of, and we had to kill people. It was like we were playing with
For
actual
honor.
Yes.
For
Yes.
honor.
It was for honor. So I mean I
that
haven't
wasn't
played
a
it
good time
since.
for
No,
you.
I failed miserably. But a lot of people tweeted me after that, and they're like, "Okay, in your defense, this is a really hard game." So I was like,
nice.
right.
Is that normal?
No, it made me feel better. So
Yeah, most of the people just tweeted me and they go, "You suck. You suck.
Did
Get
you have
good. Get
favorite
good."
and least favorite that we've made you play?
My favorite of all time actually was Slender Man because I've said this multiple times. It introduced me to horror gaming, and I've just like
That was the first gaming episode that was done on FBE that was part of Teens React, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that was something of being unprepared for the day, of not
Oh,
realizing
well, you
how
say-
long it was going to take
What-
to film.
oh
Did-
yeah.
What's the timeline in terms of gaming with metal in that? Because
way later.
Because I did
Slender
a
was such an
Slender
old
Man
game.
Yeah.
with Gaming with Metal, where Jarrett had to come in and film a gaming episode during my music,
Oh my
because that was part of our
goodness.
universe stuff. And
Yeah.
I was sitting with Jarrett trying to help him play through it because we really wanted to beat the game with it,
no.
but it was so impossible
Oh,
to
yeah.
like get him. Like we were trying to like jack with the brightness. Like how do we possibly like help ourselves at all? And I think the best we got was like 4 or 5 of the pages.
It's
or something,
impossible.
and couldn't even like. So I have such terrible memories in my
Oh,
head of trying to
gosh.
film this gaming Slender
Slender
Man.
number 1, gaming with
Yep.
metal. There it is.
It's a great episode. Go back and check out Gaming with Metal Slender. We
man.
did.
My favorite gaming with metal was Can Your Pet. That was
with
hilarious.
Scene.
Oh my god.
See, get in here. With Lainey.
Yeah.
Do you remember this
Yes.
episode?
Now I do. Yeah.
Where he's so giddy about making scenes. play this game.
the soccer ball. Play with the soccer ball.
It also was great when we did the kids of Kids
Your
React
Pet.
doing Can Your Pet on the React channel. That was good. My favorite game is one of my favorite ones is what was it called? We had the elders and the kids in it together, and it's a game where you just poop over the ledge of the building. Muddy Heights.
I
Muddy
know
Heights.
that.
Great episode.
I actually just remembered that I did another gaming episode with Brandon to some mobile game
was it
called
the Chicken
Scream.
Brandon
no, that was so much fun.
Unbelievable playing that game.
Yeah, it was so. We were
Once
filming
again,
that.
I'm going to point out to the 5% that I share a wall with the studio that does the gaming episodes. And
Yes.
so literally for my entire day, I just hear Brandon screaming at the top of his lungs playing this game where the sound of
Yeah.
your voice triggers
shout.
how high you jump in the game.
No, it was so funny.
Brandon would be really good at that. I could see this.
I felt so bad because I kept accidentally sabotaging him because I would laugh because he was so funny, and then the chicken would like fall off
Imagine
of the
somebody
ledge.
trying to like write on the other side of the wall and then just hearing,
Yeah.
I feel like quintessential Brandon is if you watch that episode.
Oh yeah. I want to
I was,
see.
no, it's fun.
It would be funny if you guys filmed that like on a bus or something. Like you just go out into like normal life and then you're just playing that game, screaming at your phone.
Okay. Let's see. Jerome Van Dyst over on Twitter. Favorite things to do outside of work and or college?
Mine's video games.
Is there a life outside of that?
I
even?
know, right? Sleep.
So you play a lot of video games on your own time?
I play a lot of video games in my own time. It's a big passion of mine.
Don't you Twitch?
I Twitch, yeah. I have my own Twitch channel, so I play a lot of games
And that's
on that.
potentially coming soon as well, right?
Oh,
Tease the
yes.
5%.
Oh, okay. Well, we are definitely
Doing it.
Yeah, we're definitely doing it. That's the tease so far.
The teasers, there'll be Twitch soon.
There will be Twitch soon, so keep an eye out, whether that be in the next couple weeks or
So
soon.
no other hobbies but video games?
No, I play video games. I do a lot of volunteer work. I love like hiking and going outside and playing basketball. So I'm not just only inside the whole time, which a lot of people are like, no,
Are you talking about like hiking simulators and like basketball
Yeah, exactly.
games?
Video games in which you hike. I like that. No, I love playing basketball, hanging out with friends, going to movies. I'm a big Magic the Gathering player.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
I love Magic the Gathering. I like Hearthstone, video games like that.
I think that once we're twitching and we know what we're doing, we should have like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
I just started my
There's
first.
a whole Slack channel here about D&D.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I did not know about this. I have not played it in a long time, but I grew up just endlessly playing D&D.
Really?
And then once like our older brother figure that introduced us to all this stuff, once we moved away, I was then the dungeon master on everything that we would do, and I'd play with Rafi and all this stuff. So I would love to get back into
That's
it.
so
That would be cool. That
I
would
love
be really
watching
fun.
people play it.
That's
so.
what I'm
Have you
saying.
seen-
We can
have you
do
seen
a
any of
campaign
Harmon
on
Quest?
Twitch. Anyway.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of Harmon Quest?
No.
It's pretty entertaining from
We're off track.
an
We still need
illustrated.
Kennedy's hobbies.
So I play tennis when I'm not in a cast.
Oh.
I don't know. Aside from that, I don't know. This is gonna sound so old and boring, but I spend most of my time working with a nonprofit with my mom. So that's like it takes up so much of our lives when we're not doing anything else. So I don't know. I guess.
What is
What's
a
the
non-
focus?
Yeah, what
your mom was like talking to me about it when I last saw her. So yeah, it's very cool.
So yeah, we work with a grassroots nonprofit called the African Millennium Foundation, and we work to empower women and children in Africa. And I've been working with them for about 6 years. I'm the youth ambassador. And so right now we have 2 girls from Tanzania that we brought to the US, and they're albino. And unfortunately, in various parts of Africa, people with albinism are hunted. So the oldest sister, when she was 8, was attacked. They took her leg and 2 fingers.
Oh my.
So we brought them here, got her a new leg, and now we're raising money for them. They're in school. And it's like I have 2 little sisters from Tanzania. So
Amazing.
yeah.
That's
Totally
incredible.
incredible. What is there like a place where you can like read more about
Yeah.
this, or a website or something?
So the website is oneamf.com, and then I started a GoFundMe for them. So periodically I'll like post it on my social media.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yee.
Links in the description of this podcast.
Oh.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
like
thank you.
your links will be down there too, but any links you can provide for this, that's incredible. Okay. Arch Girl 10 over on Instagram. This is a very important debate we're about to have philosophically
Oh, gosh.
Jeez.
about very specific superpowers.
So deep.
Oh,
on
I'm
it.
ready.
Oh,
I'm ready.
This is obvious, but anyway.
He's cheating. He's reading ahead if you can't tell. So there's a superpower and you have to pick.
Okay.
Okay.
Arch Girl 10, flying or teleportation?
Ooh.
Um,
Oh.
teleportation for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go teleportation.
Of
too.
course,
Yeah,
teleportation.
that's like instantly.
Not even the question.
Well, because
Like,
then you cut the middleman. Flying is just the.
No,
Yeah.
I disagree with all 3 of you.
Oh.
100% flying. Because we don't know speed here. Like, if I can fly and I'm really fast, like, screw you. Like, I can also
still too much
teleport.
risk.
But it's more of like a hobby. Like, I'm picking it for the hobby.
It's about
like,
the
I don't,
journey.
but I guess you could you could teleport into the air and then just teleport to different places in the air. But then I feel like you're losing the wind in your face. You're not. I want to be a bird, Benny. I want to fly around like a bird.
I can understand
and go
this.
places.
Okay.
Like, I want to paraglide. Is paragliding where you're just like in a wing? You
Yeah,
just
I
like
think
jump
so.
off a hill and just fly. Like, if I could do that and somehow be super confident about like a spare parachute or something, so I
Okay,
wouldn't
so you
die.
want to be in one of those wingsuits that you see in the wingsuit videos?
Squirrel
Yes.
suit.
That are like going through the mountains. You're like, oh my god.
But I want the jet, the version that guy in Dubai has, where
This is
he's
so
actually
specific.
jet powered squirrel suit, so
He's
he can
thought
like
about this
fly,
apparently a lot.
I know.
fly around, and you don't have to like the squirrel suit. You're still plummeting to the earth. You're just gliding. I want to be able to actually, go up in altitude, not
John,
just
did
fly
you ask
fast
this
in the air.
question yourself?
Right.
Like,
My
is that your
alter
Instagram
ego is
account?
Arch10 on Instagram.
Yeah.
I have been catfishing a lot of people for a very long time. So I say flying. Everybody else is wrong and says teleportation. Arch Girl.
You brought up a good point, though. We could fly if we just teleported just inches
No,
ahead.
you
like, we
couldn't
could
fly.
do
That's
that.
not-
No, it's the same thing.
You're talking about like stop motion flying, and
Which would
I
be
don't
hilarious to
agree.
watch as well.
I think
Right.
it's BS. I want to jump very quickly back to tennis for a
mean
second.
teleporting?
No.
Okay,
Stop.
sorry.
I'm going to teleport back to tennis for a second.
Okay.
Tennis, I don't know if you know this, Kennedy, is something that Benny and Rafi care more passionately about than almost anybody
No
I've
way.
ever met. Professional tennis. They follow professional
Really?
tennis with a passion you wouldn't believe.
Oh, wow.
Do you actually
Bonus
like
point.
follow any like?
That's how I got into it. My mom is really into tennis.
Who are your favorite players?
Okay, so Serena
and Benny will
has
agree or disagree.
Serena has always been
I'm not going to be chiming in on that.
No.
Serena has always been a role model of mine. Serena and Venus, but I mean also, Serena's queen. And
You guys
so
something in common with Venus. Laugh challenges.
Yeah.
She was in we did an NBC Olympics brand deal.
That's right,
And Venus was
yes.
in that laugh challenge.
Yeah. No, she's amazing. Ever since I was young, I used to have so much Serena and Venus merch. Like I had Serena and Venus tennis rackets and all of that, and I got to meet them, and they signed something
Awesome.
of mine. But I also. This is also in part because I have a crush on this guy, but I really like Tonga.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, he's a pretty good
Tom
player.
and I are like, I guess that's a person.
Yeah.
He's been
so,
around quite a while at this point.
he's relatively young, but yeah,
Trying to look up how old is he now.
he's been like, I don't know, he's been kind of major for the last couple of years.
I feel like Benny is looking at like a
Born
potential suitor,
1985.
I consider that young.
Number
4
15
years.
currently.
He's
Like 32 or something?
He's had at one point he was up in the top 10.
Yeah.
I saw him at the Indian Wells. I saw him at the
Okay.
Indian Wells tournament playing Juan Martín del Potro a few years ago. Who I really love Juan Martín del Potro.
Yeah.
But
There's a tennis podcast coming up for those of you listening.
But
Between
Tonga,
apparently Kennedy and Benny will have a tennis
he was
podcast.
not having a good day.
No.
And he was just losing, but he kept making tons of unforced errors. So I remember being there with Rafi and like us imagining just how frustrated that he had to be because he kept
Right.
looking to his coach or whatever. And then this is so random. But like, so Millie the puppet, I don't know if everyone is familiar with Millie the puppet. So sometimes when I'm out and about and something is like not going right, I'll become Millie as if what Millie would do in the scenario where something
Okay.
terrible is happening. So I imagine that Millie is Sanga's coach. And then every time he'd make a mistake, it would cut. It's like, and there's his coach Millie. And then Millie would just go, you guys gonna do like just gesturing like, what is wrong with you? So Tonga relates to Millie to me.
That's so funny.
But anyway, yes, love tennis. Rafi played a lot of tennis when he was in high school.
Interesting.
So he played like in the what would it be called? Isn't it USTA even when it's in
Yeah.
high school? So he did that
It's
that.
junior.
Yeah, so he was part of all of that. But now, like, when we go to the Olympics, like, one of the things we must do is we'll always do at least one day of tennis. But in the early rounds, because you get to get 12 hours of tennis, you can just
Yeah.
roam the ground.
And
So we
we
went to Wimbledon.
And I saw
Nice.
Djokovic and Murray, or we saw Murray together.
We saw Murray
in
and
London.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
Djokovic. Djokovic was playing doubles, and Murray we saw like in a singles match the same year that he won.
And
it
I know
all.
nothing about tennis,
Right.
but because I was watching tennis in the UK and Andy Murray was playing, I get to say, "Come on, Andy," Come on, Andy, which is something the entire crowd does.
Yeah.
And because tennis is so quiet,
Yeah.
where you can say stuff and just be heard by everybody. It's just like
And you're not supposed to do that. You're obnoxious if you do that.
Yeah.
And then
Anyway,
you just hear
we
somebody.
should do the tennis podcast.
Yes.
I'm ready to go. How great was it that we had the 4 American women in the U.S. Open this past year?
Amazing.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Tom and I will be doing our own separate tennis podcast where we
Learn to play tennis.
No, it's like we do one of those like announcements or voiceovers where somebody that doesn't understand rugby is like explaining
and
rugby
then
or
he
cricket
hits-
to
Oh,
somebody.
yeah.
Oh,
So it's just you and I doing
hit
tennis
the ball
commentary.
again. Nope, there it goes.
Okay. Here we go. Kel's right over on Instagram. Any advice for how to stay positive?
Ooh. I mean, I'm a pretty chipper person. I think
You don't say.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's always like, "Why are you so happy?"
Kennedy's like, turn it down.
I think it's a state of mind. I think a lot of people are dealt really crappy hands in life, and it is just a mindset where it's like, it's almost like, I don't know. Let me explain in a song. No,
what Tom says echoes very close to me in terms of it's all about gratitude,
Yeah.
I think, in my mind. And how much gratitude you have personally for the blessings that you have in your life maps very closely to how content or kind of happy you are. And it's like, regardless of your situation or income or anything else, like if you're super aware of the blessings that you do have in life, you tend to be happier. Like,
Yeah.
happy people are thankful people.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just like, because a lot of people, I get asked that question a lot where it's like, why are you so happy? Or like, how are you so happy? And it's like, it's not the fact that I'm just always happy. It's like everyone has like emotions and stuff like that. It peaks and valleys and stuff like that. It's just, it is keeping that in the back of your mind that other people have it worse. It could have, like, you could be in a situation where it gets tremendously worse. So it is, I think it is a thing about being thankful. So I think you hit that like perfectly. I don't have anything to add. I was like, yeah, basically.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. A few years ago, I was kind of dealing with a lot, and one thing that helped me cope with it was every morning when I would wake up, I would verbally out loud, say at least one thing that I was grateful for that I had in my life, whether it was a person or like a positive experience that I had. So it shifted my focus towards the positive and the good in my life, and I genuinely think that helped me, go through the situation, and I still carry that on. I mean, I don't like wake up and verbally say it anymore, but it's still kind of something that I carry along with me. So
I definitely struggle with this. Like I definitely will admit to definitely being struggling. Like I would even say that I can't think of any time in my life that I would define myself as a happy person if someone was to ask me. Even though it's not something that you would see in my day-to-day or think by knowing me, but it's definitely, it is a state of mind in a lot of ways. And I think that one of the things I used to always tell people when they would say things like they're feeling something, but they feel stupid about feeling that way or whatever it might be, I'd always be like, it's not stupid even if it is cliche or whatever it is, because you're only one you, and your feelings are your feelings and they're valid. So I don't think it's like a negative to be unhappy by any means,
It's not, yeah.
but it's an element of like acknowledging the fact that like there are peaks and valleys to everything, and happiness is like, I don't even know. People have a goal to be happy, and I think it's an incorrect goal.
Yeah.
I think that happiness is maybe not really the goal versus understanding what makes you, if that makes sense, and focusing on those things that you know to be true about yourself that you can be happy about, even in moments of time, which is kind of how I go through. I'm happy in moments, and I love that.
Right.
It's interesting to me because this maps the conversations we've had in the past about like YouTube comments and dealing with kind of like hate or abuse online.
Not easy.
And because it's one of those things where like you will get 100 supportive comments about like, hey, that game's really hard, like don't feel bad. And then you'll get like 2 super shitty comments, and those are the ones that stick with you, and that maps very much to life in terms of the frustrating, sad, disappointing, like angry parts of it. Like most of your day could be pleasant, like you wake up in an apartment like with air conditioning and like food and like all this other stuff, and then you come to a good job and like with people you like and like all this other stuff, and those things you don't even think of. It's like you're only appreciative for health when you have good health, like, or when you're sick, you're like, why can't I just be happy all the time? My nose isn't running. Like, you know what I mean?
It is
like,
crazy, those things of how quickly you can forget. Like even right now, you're dealing with recovering from surgery, and even though it could be so much worse, you still are dealing with the things you're dealing with that is probably making you think, oh, right, when I'm not in this cast. And I think about that all the time and how quickly things turn on a dime. And I think everyone has had bad experiences and things happen either to themselves or to someone that's close to them in an instant. And everything in your life, literally any second, your entire world can change. And something horrible can happen and everything changes for a period of time. And you got to try to remember all those times. It's funny you even say getting sick, that there's times where I've been sick and I just can't shake it. And I feel, and my voice is all hoarse. And I remember going back to a Millie the Puppet thing, going back to when Millie was still something I was doing all the time and I couldn't do her voice. And it was taking so long. I had this moment of like, am I never going to be able to do her voice ever again? This is my life now. And it's like, no, it's not. But when it's not your life, how do you hold on to that, to realize even in those stupid things like a puppet's voice, think about how much worse it really could be.
Yeah.
I
think a lot of things too is like when people are like dealing with stuff, it's like, a lot of it will pass. Like they make such a big deal out of like, oh, I can't go on this trip, or like, oh, this test is everything. And it's like they get immediately sad. And then that it almost like it's hard because I feel like people get stuck in a pattern of negative thinking that I think also has a lot to do with it too.
It's a
cycle.
self-fulfilling prophecy almost,
exactly,
like when you go down those paths.
If you don't like change the way you think about it.
And misery loves company and all those other cliche, like you get around people that feel the same way and you just all like kind of help each other.
Time is so fluid. This show proves that. It feels like a second that you were 15 and on the show, yet here you are in your 20s. And people have grown up with the show in the same way. Time is fleeting. Things do pass. Things get better. Things get worse.
Speaking of fleeting time, moving on very quickly to Josh Can 0418 over on Instagram. Favorite book that stands out to you guys? My answer to this is always Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Ooh, great book.
Douglas Adams has always been a huge inspiration, but also Terry Pratchett and I'm forgetting. But yeah, and you guys, anything stand out?
Yes. Okay. So I'm obsessed with Gone Girl. Not Gone Girl. Sorry. Girl Interrupted. Totally different.
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Very different.
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Girl Interrupted.
Yeah. Similar girl theme.
Super girl.
But, Girl Interrupted. Really good. Also The Essential Roomie, which is more of like a poetry book. But I love it. It's so uplifting and positive. So
Benny's answer is always Harry Potter. No.
I mean, I love Harry Potter, but I wouldn't classify that. Though what's funny is I was going to say that, like, being truthful, I don't have any time for books, and it's something that I wish I did more is read, and I don't. So I end up going to things like The Lord of the Rings, just because, like, I
That
really
was the
enjoyed
last
that book.
book series.
It might have been the last book series I read, but I read it like when I was a kid, and then I read it again. Like, I made myself read it again before the Fellowship of the Ring came out, which was so many years ago now, and I was already an adult when it came out.
Have you ever read any of the Game of Thrones books, or do you see yourself ever
I
reading?
have, and then I ended up realizing that by the time I would get around to getting anywhere near where it was coming up, it was already coming back, and then I was like, it's just not going to work. I'm just give up on it. And then he didn't continue it anyway, and now we have to deal with Game of Thrones on their own, and it's just not good. And that's blasphemy to a lot of people. But anyway.
Oh, jeez.
Tom?
It was good.
I typically, when I read, I don't read like fiction or nonfiction. I kind of read like, not self-help books, but like skill, like trying to learn like a skill, like business books, stuff like that. But if I had to choose one, I liked Ray Bradbury's Illustrated Man. I really enjoyed it. It's a collection of short stories. But I don't know. It's always resonated with me.
There you go.
Scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. Goosebumps was my favorite.
Final question before we get into some industry or company questions. Michael Edward McPhee over on YouTube. What is your favorite video that you guys have been in or seen from FBE in terms of its influence on societal or cultural norms?
Damn.
So, like, I guess not. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of videos that you could potentially
I think
classify
landed
that
on an episode you were in. That way it becomes it can be easier. One that you did that you felt was your favorite one.
Well, for me, I think the College Kids React to Racism in America. I know that resonated with a lot of people, and I think that was like, I don't know, one of the first major episodes on some sort of social issue that I did. So I was really nervous going into it. Because of course there are always going to be people who, pick apart your opinion or what you have to say, which, that happened, but there were also a lot of really positive comments. And I actually came back into film a few weeks later, and a girl had like emailed you guys something about me, and it was so positive and uplifting. And I read it, and it just like made my heart feel all warm. So I think that was one of my favorites, just because of, the feedback I got afterwards.
Yeah, this is a really old one. I feel like I'm dating myself because it's an old video. Is the
cutting to when Benny says he saw
I
Lord of the
know
Rings
exactly.
as an
I'm
adult.
dating myself on the channel, I guess. Was Teens React to Amanda Todd. I remember that, and I don't know. It was just so. The raw emotion that everyone I feel like expressed was like really relatable, and I think a lot of kids are going through like bullying or just issues in general where they feel like no one else is and they feel isolated, and I feel like that helped a lot of people realize that other people are going through the same problems that they are, something similar, where it's like, okay, it does pass with time, and there's other people out there doing that, and I think that really helps. Just knowing that someone else out there is going through something can help you get through rough times.
I think it's interesting with that episode, and I don't know this with definitiveness, but it feels like that the idea of cyberbullying was not as commonplace in general society as it was back when we covered that episode, that even a lot of the teens in the episode, they maybe had experiences with it, but not labeling it, if anything. And I feel like that you mentioned the raw emotion, the real shock of discovering and learning when they weren't familiar with what happened. I feel like today, you hear it's horrible,
Yeah.
but you hear about these things so much now that I feel like it hit that extra chord of like riding a wave at that moment of something that was a huge issue that has continued and I think has gotten, you can't say it's gotten better, but there's definitely more talking around it. Though I remember finding some, like, whatever. It's all just interesting about, I remember being interviewed by a couple of publications where that came out asking, like, what are our thoughts of what could be done about that time period. And I remember talking about that the social networks themselves are culpable. And one of the things that we still reference from that episode is, have you ever heard of anyone being suspended off of Facebook or anything for bullying another person? Everyone said no. Probably still to this day, the answer would still be no. It's interesting stuff. We recently did an episode that you were in on privilege. That has, we should talk about it a little bit because it just came out in terms of we knew even going into that this is going to be this controversial thing. We don't feel like we should be shying away from things like that just because it is controversial. I will say that I don't know the right term to use. I'll use proud. I'm very, very proud of you in terms of how I then saw you handling some of what was happening in terms of your specific thoughts in the episode of how you kind of like very like put your foot in the sand on Twitter, being like, this is my opinion. I stand by this. You know, etc. Can you talk a little bit without, you don't need to go super detail, but like, you know, because there definitely was a lot that came your way from that episode.
So one, I think, you know, doing episodes like this are so important. And as I said in that episode, it's the only way that, you know, change of any kind will progress. I was, again, with that one too, I was nervous going into it, but I was also kind of excited because I have this amazing platform, thanks to you guys, where I can, you know, have my voice heard. So yeah, I mean, again, with this, there were a lot of people who reached out to me and were like, okay, yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying. But then on the other end of the spectrum, there were a lot of really, really, you know, nasty things. Someone accused me of being racist. It was just, you know, it was hard to read at first, but I feel like people don't really realize when you are subjecting yourself to, you know, so much criticism when you are expressing your opinion to millions of people. And I always forget that so many people watch the show. So of course, I mean, you are going to get, not everyone's going to agree with you, and that's the way that life is. What I do like though is when somebody has a different opinion than mine, but expresses it in such a nice way, like they're not like, oh, you know, I hate you for having a different opinion.
Well, that's what we talk about a lot. Like, we're not making these things, and again, we're in Los Angeles, so it's going to end up skewing more liberal just because of the reality of things. But the episode's purpose is not to push any agenda. It's just to capture the thoughts of the people that happen to be in that episode and what they think about it. And what we want is a discourse, and to what you're describing, you can disagree. Let's have a conversation and understand each other more, even if we're going to ultimately disagree, rather than just attacking and labeling people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we say this a lot on this podcast, preaching to the choir, that, you know, the 5% aren't going to do these types of things. But yeah, like, there's no reason to be so hate-filled, and that's part of the issues we have as a society. But is that, no, let's have a discussion, let's have a conversation, let's talk about this in a more meaningful way. And a lot of that is there, but you've got to like get through a lot of the very loud people.
And the world's never going to be unanimous on anything, and that's okay.
And that's what is the beauty of the world and people and all of those things. Like, that's what I love about the show. I always am happy to see a differing opinion, even if it's something I don't agree with, because it's representing other people, and we need to be representing everybody to learn from each other and become better as a people, in my opinion.
My biggest wish and hope for the world is that you can approach that argument or that thing that you don't agree with just more humanity in terms of like, okay, like understanding what is the other side's point or perspective, like, really, because in a case like the privilege episode, like the side of like privilege obviously being a thing is trying to make the case that privilege is invisible to the privileged. And so like that's a very hard meta argument to make, especially with people that disagree with that statement, and it becomes very like nuanced and complex and everything else. And I just wish we were all like less defensive or scared creatures when approached with that kind of like heavier, like bigger, like worldview stuff, and we're just willing to have those conversations and talk about versus just immediately seeing the worst or just taking it as a personal attack, like when it isn't. It's just like, man, I just see
Look, anyone listening, if you're get really angry about someone's opinion, realize like it's them, it's their opinion,
Yeah.
and that it's not an easy thing for them to put themselves out there, and the show would never work if it wasn't for people like the two of you still, with all of it, being willing to actually state your real opinion on things.
Also,
funny
imagine
or
if we
not.
all had the same opinion on the show.
What a fun show.
Well, that's the thing, and we've talked about that before, because some episodes end up happening that way when we don't anticipate it, and then all of a sudden there's even comments being like, what's the point of showing a bunch of people who know Rick and Morty? And it's like, well, that's what happened.
Cool. So we, so obviously not just like, in random advice and opinion questions that kind of come in from you guys, the 5%, but we also encourage you guys just to send us questions about the company overall or the industry, or just, thoughts that have almost nothing to
I
do
don't know if
with.
we're going to be able to get to all of these.
Well,
time-wise.
do you want to pick some then, Benny? Or
Sure,
do you
I
not
can pick
care?
one.
Great.
That's
one.
fine. Okay. So I'm going to go back to explaining this because it is confusing. So Leah on YouTube can you please explain again the thing with the views in the first hour of a video's upload again, and how it affects the recommendation on other people's recommendations lists? I didn't quite get it. So I'll try again because it is confusing. And this is again all a theory.
YouTube theory.
But from the data that we are gathering, and it seems to be true to varying degrees, but you can't definitively say this, but from our research and all the data and stuff that we have, when you upload a video, any of your favorite YouTube channels, they upload a video, in that moment, there's the recommendation section. When you log into YouTube and you have an account, there's the recommendation section, which is one of the primary places that people who are even subscribed to channels will click. They will watch from their home page when it is recommended to them.
Not their subscription box.
Not the subscription box, but
the
that
default
page.
homepage.
Whether they know they're being recommended or think that's their sub box or not, that's one of the primary places where a lot of the views are given. So in that moment when it gets uploaded, it's based on a lot of different factors, including past performance and stuff, but the algorithm and recommendation engine of what should go in the recommendation box and where will send it out every time to a certain sampling of who is subscribed to that channel's subscribers. Based on how many of those people that happen to be there in that first 30 minutes to an hour-ish of time that are there, that saw it and it was recommended to them, and they actually clicked and then watched a lot of the video or stayed on YouTube a long time afterwards, will start telling the self-learning algorithm, we should be recommending this to more subscribers of that channel, because the sampling that we gave it to all seem to be clicking on it in droves. They're watching it all the way through. They're sharing the video, and there's so many people doing it. We're going to send it to more and more and more. And then as a result, more people will click on it, because most of the time when you're subscribed to a channel, you do want to click on it when you actually know it's there. And then it creates that system where it can go to more of the people's recommendation homepages. You'll get more views. It'll index better inside of YouTube for all time, or for 2 days, depending on the algorithm. So the issue is when you upload something that is maybe something brand new, as an example. It's not something you normally do. So the sampling that it gets sent out to are less prone to click it, because they see other things and they're like, oh, it's not teens react, it's emo dad, or it's a last moment of relationship, or it's kids, or it's teens react to a topic that I'm not that familiar with. Less will click. And then the algorithm will say, oh, less clicked, send it to less. Not accounting for the fact that, but there are fans that watch every single Teens React, no matter what it is, and they want to watch it, and they will watch it if it was just sent to them like it always was. Now, because of the behavior of others, they never even get recommended it in the first place. So that's why we always say, if you do happen to see any of your favorite creators' videos on your recommendation page, click it, mute it if you need to, and put it somewhere else, because your click might make more people actually get recommended it. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So again, not a for sure thing. There's a lot of other factors at play too, but that is one of the big ones, is that recommendation screen.
So interesting.
I know. I
I
feel
can
like
go on
we're
on
in
that.
class.
I know, exactly.
But a fun class.
Did you listen to the MatPat algorithm hour?
Oh,
with
yeah.
MatPat and Rafi?
It's
Very
still,
interesting
there's things that
podcast.
have changed, but it's still very helpful. And I've seen a few people end up tweeting other people talking about this and saying, did you watch this podcast? It'll help you understand it at least a little bit better.
It definitely helped me with my analytics. Especially, it really did, though.
Okay.
We should do like a twice a year MatPat podcast.
You really should.
I'm sure he'd come back and do it. It's more of just like what's new, because there's also theories again of like what changes, because just in September again, everything had a reset again at the same exact time that it did last year. And we've talked about it on the podcast where you're seeing huge fluctuations in viewership across FBE right now, and episodes that have gotten the least amount of views that they've ever had in the history of the whole show and things like that have been happening. And then we have spikes up and spikes down, and I feel like we always end up netting back out again, but we're going to see what happens. It's definitely a downturn right now for FBE, and not just us. There's people have it a lot worse. Talk about, again, being happy.
Be grateful.
Do you have a favorite one to have one more here, John, of these questions?
Well, you kind of answered 2 of these in that one. Yeah, we'll go to the last one.
Sure. So, Sync 2K. For a second, I thought it was So You Think You Can Dance, which would have made me happy. SYTYCD.
No. So you... No, 2K.
Same thing.
So from YouTube, there's a lot of YouTubers with similar numbers of subscribers as you that post videos every day. If their gains are similar to FBE's and FBE needs to pay all their staff to pay for the studio and other things that you need to make in the videos, how do you do so much and keep FBE so good? Well, I would say it has to do with the quality of the people that work here, of course. Impossible to do without this very talented and motivated, hardworking team that pushes themselves to get all the content out with... even though we have a lot more resources than many, it's still very limited resources from the real production world. Like there's a ton of things missing and people that have to wear a lot of hats and do a lot of different types of jobs. So that's on one side of it. And then the flip side is it's getting harder and harder and harder to sustain what we were just talking about. Like when you could rely on the view counts for years of knowing, well, this is how this works. If we make more content, it equals this, which will equal this, which will equal this. And suddenly that all changes. It definitely becomes difficult, and that's where you see a lot of pivots and changing. So a lot of what we do is we always say adapt or die, and we've been saying that for a long, long time. We've been on the internet for over 13 years, so it's changed a lot. And a lot of people that fell off over the many years, whether it was the pre-YouTube days or the YouTube days, are people that didn't evolve and adapt with what's happening. So we have all this data, we have all these analytics, we realize when something's wrong really, really quickly and start trying to understand and pivot. And for frequent listeners, we talk about things like the lightning system, which is shooting something, then 2 days later it comes out. You said never be that fast, and we changed all the models to be able to do that. And we're now having to be more selective in what we pick. I feel like we talked about this maybe 6 weeks ago on the podcast. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody who remembers everything to the detail of talking about how you're going to see from everybody on YouTube, but you're seeing it a lot more from us. You have to start putting out certain pieces of content that spike, that even though it's more mainstream, maybe you've seen it a lot, the kind of general fan base love it. So whether it's try not tos, which have become like such a popular thing that we now do a lot more try not to move, try not to get mad, try not to sings than we normally would, than covering an interesting thing. Because if we cover too many interesting things in a row that people don't know about, not enough people will click, the views will go down, and then we'll never be able to recover ever again.
So it's like a tent pole. So it's like a tent pole before you try something.
You get caught inside of a loop, hypothetically, where if you did too many things that people don't know about in a row, your views go down too much, and then the algorithm can never catch itself back up because it won't even recommend it to as many people to sample it anymore, because in the algorithm's eyes, the channel's dying. So that's where you'll see these spikes. MatPat talks about it, where he'll do a Mario or a Five Nights at Freddy's theory, even though he's done it so many times, and it could anger his base sometimes because most of the majority love it, and it just gives it that spike. So those are the types of things that we have to do to kind of ongoing do that and change up our cadences, do different types of things that if you're paying attention, you'll start noticing, oh, they switched something up. Like we just did it with gaming in terms of doing different types of games that we hadn't done in a while, trying to reinvigorate that because the views were going down and down and down. So it's a lot. We need your help. Yeah. And this is where a lot of these things are that we talk about. We don't know where we're heading exactly, but things like the meet and greet, things like FBE2, things like this podcast are all built for how can we engage the people who care about the company the most and understand these things and ask those questions. So then when the day comes where we are in a situation where maybe we're figuring out some type of a fan club in a Rooster Teeth-like way, because I saw a lot of comments that week where I asked, what should we be doing? And a lot of people reference Rooster Teeth who have their paid like various tiers of how to support the company in various ways. And we may grow into that one day with your help to understand what it is that you would want and find value in. But it's important to spread that word to understand that even though it may look like we're one of the biggest channels in the world, and we are, there's still these issues that YouTube as a platform has. And for sustainability and continued growth and not have to go backwards, it's going to reach a point where we're going to need to be other places than just YouTube and need your help to help us do that.
How many, do you know roughly? I mean, Rooster Teeth has hundreds of people in the Texas office. We have 60, almost 70 full-time people here in LA in our office. But yeah, that's so much overhead. That's so much like health insurance and taxes and equipment and everything else. And I can't speak for other channels, but for us, all of that money, that the very paltry like YouTube money and any brand deals that we can, and finagle, or like random external productions or TV shows you guys may hear about.
Back in.
Every dollar I speak, because I also run the finance team right now. I can be very transparent with everybody here. Like that goes into, we can hire another person now. We can actually bring on another editor to the team. We can bring on another PA. We can upgrade our camera, we can upgrade our iMac, we can do all these things that up until before we had the vlogs, and I would say we're not even really getting into that very deeply in the vlogs right now, but we want to be sharing so much more of the reality and the struggle of what it actually takes to have a business of any kind on YouTube. Yep. Your favorite content creators kind of talk about the struggles that they're going through. We are not any different. We just don't talk about it as much.
And we've made choices where obviously if you're by yourself and what you're doing on YouTube doesn't require the operation this requires, you can still be completely fine even with these fluctuations as long as you're adapting enough. But when you are looking to do more, it's very, very difficult.
Trying to.
Well, I would say the best thing right now is that if anyone hasn't been over to Matthias's channel in a while, he's a great YouTuber. He's been on YouTubers React, and he just started a Patreon page and had a whole very transparent conversation because he's a pretty big channel that needs a Patreon to help sustain the growth and the company he's trying to build. And that's the reality, that if you're trying to do more and try to provide more for the fans, it just doesn't work anymore without more, or you get stuck only doing what you can do and you can't grow anymore, which is like the thing that me and Rafi hate the most. Is like, I don't want to be stagnant. I want to be innovating and doing more. We've reached kind of that point where without certain changes happening at the company, we're not going to be able to keep growing at the same rate that we've been growing for so long. It has kind of stopped in the last little bit. We make what we make, and we sometimes have an extra video. How do we get to that next step? We're trying to figure this out with all of you guys along for the ride to help us understand what would you want. How can we find a support system that makes sense, whether it's through merch or Patreon or things like that.
A lot more cool conversations ongoing on FBE too. So make sure you're subscribed. I think that was it, Benny.
I think that we just should end there because this has been a healthy podcast.
A healthy podcast. So that's not a very good hashtag to me. That's not.
That's a healthy podcast.
Podcast. Can I get any help or ideas for the hashtag this week?
I don't think John will go with Macarena.
No!
Macarena?
No! We got so close. And I saw a comment last week that was like, what the heck is up with Benny? Why does he keep making
And how many more comments do you get about where was it when I don't say it?
That's because I'm not aware of this.
When I wasn't on the podcast recently, I started slacking, but I don't think you or Rafi were checking the Slack.
You.
And I was saying things like Macarena, hoping that you would like mention it because of being annoyed, but it didn't happen.
Oh.
This is just something Benny says just to annoy me at this point. So it's just an inside joke. But we need an actual hashtag for the show.
Not the Macarena.
No. This will be your last time on the podcast.
Hey.
You will have a permanent. I will have Oscar put a flyer up. Do not let this man on the podcast.
In here.
What do you think?
Is there any tennis legends that are easy
about to say something about tennis.
that are easy to spell? Because
we can't go with Songa then because it's hard to spell.
You can spell it out.
So
for
many
people.
of the greats are hard to spell.
So I can spell his name.
Djokovic. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God!
It's a silent T, right?
Can't even
spell it.
Tsonga.
So there you go. Tsonga. That is apparently the name of a very famous tennis player.
It's funny that, it won't happen. Like the idea that like there's all of this attention for Tsonga now in the comments of this video. And also like you should add if you actually know who that is.
Let's add team to that.
Team Tsonga.
Team Tsonga. So hashtag team Tsonga.
Yes.
So that is the hashtag this week. Oh dear God, we've added silent T's into this. We are very sorry if English is not your first language, but we did spell it out.
It's not an American. It's not an English.
What's his
word.
background, or what country is he from?
I don't remember.
I can tell you that I have a feeling that we're going to have a decent representation of tennis fans in the 5%. I just have a feeling. We're so global.
Also, we've also asked this question. Now I'm genuinely curious. Who is your favorite tennis player? If you know, leave us a comment with your famous tennis player, because there will probably be a healthy debate and a back and forth with Benny, who may respond to more of those tennis-related questions in the podcast.
Mine's Kennedy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's
I'm retired right now. I'm retired. But,
Well, you are my favorite.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So these are all the lovely people that left hashtag lobster interns last week. Shout outs this week to Abby Miller,
Adrian Hernandez,
Adrian X,
Alexis Reyes,
All About Zach,
Amethyst Beloved,
Anna Shadix,
Aniston Anarchist,
Anton Savitin,
Ashley M,
Bernice Chu,
Candice Chu,
Christian R,
Daniel Pickle,
Devin Giles,
Epic Narvik,
97, Farhana Nitu.
Fernando de Luna.
Flavio Corby. I'm gonna butcher your name. Nugtui.
Noctui.
Gallo Zim. That's very similar to my last name.
Jag519.
Jezreel.
Joseph Dufresne.
Kaylin OPG.
Caitlin Dillon.
Kendrick Harris.
Christian Butch.
Case. Oh.
Sorry, don't know how to pronounce your last name. Sorry.
Caster Stone.
Kyle de Blasio.
Kyle IDK.
Why do I get all the hard names? Kai Young Bin Min.
Lamonte Harris.
Leah Hull.
Majestic Mongoose.
Mods.
Wait, you skipped the
skipped
easy
one.
one.
I'm sorry, I wanted the hard one. All right, Maureen O'Brien.
Mods H.
Michael Edward McPhee.
Michael Hoven.
Oh my God. Michael Huddery.
Okay, wait. Mr. Banan Cartong.
Beautiful. Nikki
Nice.
Grayjack.
Prakash D.
Queen Azora 03.
Sapphire Gemstone.
Sasha Beth.
Simon James.
Simon W.
Super Mustache 555.
Trav Lognan.
Troyer.
Unknown Thief. Can't find him.
Vanessa Quintana.
And Verovet. And if you're listening from any of these countries, please let us know. We are such a huge fan of all of you, and we're so thankful for the 5% representation in each of these countries. So let us know where you're listening from in the comments. I saw somebody calling me out for not mentioning their country, saying, what other words do you want me to use, John? I used from, and you still didn't call me out. And I just apologize to them.
Human error.
Because there is a significant human error producing this podcast. So I may miss it. But yeah, let us know where you're listening from. Shout outs this week to Australia,
Austria.
Belgium.
Brazil.
Canada,
Denmark.
Germany.
Hungary.
India,
Indonesia.
Kenya.
Malaysia.
Mexico,
Nepal.
Netherlands.
South Korea.
Spain,
Sweden.
UK.
and the USA. I remember California, Texas, Maryland,
me.
Idaho, and New York.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Guys, thanks for being on the podcast, taking time at night,
Thanks.
hobbling
Yes.
over here.
Yeah, I hobbled all the way over here from home.
But no, it's always good. I even enjoy, of course I even enjoy, but having this time to just kind of chit chat, you know, not in the confines of rushed time or inside of a shoot room or things like that. It's just cool to hang out and talk. We got pretty deep on the podcast,
Yeah.
got pretty honest, got on a whole good tangent about happiness. Good stuff. We should do the happiness podcast.
Oh,
That was-
Yes.
Yes, there was. Yes,
This is
all-
everything.
all,
This is
all
not
the, all the
I
podcasts.
don't think anyone was expecting it when they started that we were going to go into that area.
We
And
have
we
like
did.
6 podcasts we
Yes.
need to do now.
Gaming, tennis, positivity, gratitude,
Tom
privilege.
teaches emojis to Benny podcast.
Yes.
True.
Emojis.
Working on the name. It's a working title.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. It was, it was so great to, get to speak to you more and especially get to hang out with Kennedy because I always, tell especially like the OG reactors, the people that have been here a long time. Some of you guys are kind of things that I've said like 20 words to over like 5 years, and it feels really awkward that we have somehow we've made it this far without having real conversations.
Well, now we've broken the ice.
Yes, exactly. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll be back next week.
Don't forget, it moves to FBE 2. So subscribe to FBE 2.
If you listen to the audio, nothing changes for you. But if you listen to the video, please consider subscribing to FBE2. Otherwise, you're not going to get this anymore.
Moving to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Although most of you guys don't even get this video recommended to you anyway on the homepage, so it's still not going to get recommended
Maybe
to you.
at FBE2, it will hit more of the FBE2 people.
Blow up. Yeah.
Anyway, yes, thank you so much for hanging out with us this week. Hopefully you guys found it enjoyable. Use the hashtag FBE Podcast to send us a question for next week's episode. Follow the Twitter and Instagrams for teases of who will be our guest next week or who will even be on the podcast, because they'll probably be at least Benny or myself, but you never know. It's a grad tag every week. Take it easy, guys. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.